All right, hello everybody. Welcome to our weekly call with Red Earth. Matt Ham here. Have enjoyed this series that we're walking through, that we're in the middle of right now on teamwork. We're kind of taking John Maxwell's laws of teamwork. I'll show you guys a picture of this. This is the 17 indisputable laws of teamwork, and we're adapting them a little bit, adding some of our own juju into the mix, and hopefully providing some context on why teamwork is essential for us to achieve kind of our global goal. So, I know a lot of times we focus on the individual aspects of this versus the corporate aspects of this. This is more of a corporate aspect. Why is it important to have a team? Are you part of a team? Do you feel like you're part of a team? The answer is yes, you are. Red Earth is a dynamic team. You guys are team members within that, but you're also team members within your own individual communities. So we're talking about kind of how we philosophically approach the concept of teamwork, why it's important, and why we need to continue to build an excellent team culture, not only Red Earth corporate, but also in your own individual communities, but then also all the way down into your personal life when you look at yourself coming together with all your strengths to do what it is that you guys do well, which is sell real estate. So today we are on Law 5, which is the law of the chain. If you remember last week, we talked about the law of Mount Everest, the idea that we have to have an Everest-sized goal, that it takes a team to conquer an Everest-sized goal. I thought that was a great call, really focusing in on what is your Everest within your communities, meaning your annual sales goals, but also to the bigger picture in your own life, the Everest that you want to climb. This week, we're talking about why it's essential, if you're going after an Everest-sized goal, to make sure that the whole team is coming together for that common goal. It's called the law of the chain. And it says the strength of the team is impacted by its weakest link. This is probably not the funnest topic to talk about on a team, but the reality is, in every single team dynamic, the weakest link is always the greatest exposure. Imagine if you're climbing up Mount Everest and you have someone on the team who becomes injured and they can't continue up the mountain. You have to make a decision at that moment to get that person off the team, off the mountain to recover, because you cannot carry them forward. There's a great movie a couple years ago that I saw called Master and Commander. Russell Crowe is the main actor in it, the gentleman from Gladiator, if you know Russell Crowe. But Master and Commander is a great movie. It's about kind of a French warship back in the, gosh, it would have been like Revolutionary War period. And Russell Crowe is on this ship and he's hunting down this French warship. And they're kind of all out in the Caribbean, and they're in the middle of the ocean, and they're trying to track down this ship because this ship is beginning to sink a lot of their ships. And so there's a great scene when they are caught in a storm, and they have a ship full of their crew. Probably 50 to 70 men on the boat, on the ship, and there's one man on the mast. Right, he's the lookout. So he's sitting in the crow's nest on top of the mast. Well, what happens is during the storm, the mast breaks and it falls off into the ocean. But the ropes from the mast are still attached to the ship. And the sails from the mast are taking water. And so what it does is it's tilting the ship over, and the whole ship threatens to capsize. And you've got a ship full of 50 to 70 crew members, and you have one of the crew members who's attached to the mast in the middle of the ocean. Now, pause for a second and put yourself as the captain on that ship. If you're the captain on the ship, your mast is broken, it's in the water, the ropes from the mast and the sails are tied to the ship still, and those sails and that mast are capsizing your boat. And you've got 50 to 70 men or women, however you want to look at it, on your ship that you're responsible for, and you have one of your crew members that's in the ocean. What do you do? There's a lot of emotion that goes into this when you're working with teams, because some would say, well, try to save the individual. Of course, if you can throw them a life raft, but it's a storm, right? So it's nearly impossible to get a life raft to the person. So every option is exhausted. What do? Do you risk the entire ship and the 50 to 70 lives for the one crew member that's overboard? Or do you cut the lines loose to save the 50 to 70 crew members at the risk of this one particular individual? This is a really challenging concept. And when you come to the dynamic of teams, you have to be able to make these difficult calls. Now, I'm not going to stand here and say collectively that in the example that I used that you would not exhaust every option to help out a team member. But when you think from a team dynamic, and if the team's goal and the team's success and the team's growth is the primary objective, then you have no other choice than to cut the ropes and cut that individual loose. A lot of folks might say that that's harsh. A lot of folks might say that that is unrealistic or inhumane or whatever you want to say. But the truth of the matter is if you are thinking from a team dynamic, the team is the goal and not the individual. It doesn't mean you write people off. It doesn't mean you're ugly to people. It doesn't mean you don't provide help to people. But it means when you carry a team mentality, you have to move forward for the team. And so this is the law of the chain, and it addresses this concept of the weakest link. This week, I've been in my yard. Springtime's happening. The grass is starting to grow. And I may have mentioned this to you on a call. I do a lot of these calls, so I can't remember exactly who I mentioned what to. But what happens with a lawn in the springtime is the new grass shoots begin to come up. But the old grass dies and lays there on the ground. And if you do not rake up the old dead leaves or even go in and pull the old grass, the new grass is inhibited from growing. And so think of it this way. I've got these dead patches in my yard where the new grass isn't growing because the old dead grass is covering up the new growth. So I've got to go and I've got to rake, and I've got to go in and I've got to thatch or pick out the dead grass in order for the new grass to grow. If you don't do that, your yard's not going to grow in. It's not going to look right. It's not going to work, okay? And so think about that concept when applied to a team. If you have dead weight on your team, you've got to go in and you've got to thatch it. That means that collectively, organizationally, Red Earth has to assess the management that's in place, the individual salespeople that's in place, as well as the team here doing administrative stuff and all of the work that's going into the graphic design and the layouts and all the stuff for the communities. If there's a weak link, if there's someone who's weighting down these projects, if there's someone who's weighting down the team, then a decision has to be made for the health and wellness of the team. Same is true for you guys at your individual communities. If you have one person who is kind of the anchor or dragging the team down, then you have to have conversations with these individuals, and you've got to understand that the team goal is the objective. Now, as John Maxwell talks about this in the 17 Laws, what he says that I really appreciated and actually agree with is when you look at a team, think about this. Think about 5 team members and ranking them on a scale of 1 to 10. Okay? The maximum potential for that team would be 50, right? If every single person was operating at a 10. But let's just add one weak link into the 5. So let's say you've got a 10, a 10, a 10, a 10, and a 5. Okay? That adds up to 45. Now, if you took averages and divided it out, 5 team members by 45, what's the math on that? What's it, 9, right? 45 divided by 5 is 9. So what you have there is you drop your 10s down to a 9 in order to pull your 5 up to a 9. Okay, so you're actually negatively affecting 4 of the team members because they're having to carry the weight of the 5 and bring the 5 up to the 9. And you can imagine if you insert 2 5s or a 5 and a 7, it really brings the dynamic down. But that's not actually how teamwork works, is what Maxwell would say. He says that teamwork is exponential. It functions off of multiplication, not addition. So if you had 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, that would be the maximum potential of a team. Not 50, but 100,000. 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, right? If you think of it that way and you insert a 5 into the mix, 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 5 is 50,000. So the overall output for a team with a weak link is cut in half. Instead of being 100,000, it's now 50,000. So a weak link has a massive impact on the potential of a team's growth and a team's forward motion. And you have to be honest about this, and we have to address it. Now, I am one who has said on these videos from day one, there's a massive problem in corporate culture when they automatically want to write off people. I think there's a huge problem with that. I've told you stories about my former insurance company where they only recognized 18% of the sales force as the winners or the successful people. So you have to have different role players on the team. Going back to the law of the niche. This was the third law. You've got to have role players, people that add value in their own specific way. So we're not necessarily talking about people who aren't as productive as the other team members. We're talking about people who carry certain characteristics and qualities. And so Maxwell lays out these characteristics and qualities of a weak link. And so this isn't about productivity. It's not about, well, you're not meeting sales and you're meeting sales. It's about the mindset and the attitude and the willingness that a person brings to the team. Okay? So he says these 3 things, and then he gives 6 different examples. So number 1, when you're working with a team, know that not everyone will take the journey with you. At some point in time, people are going to make decisions to go a different path, and that's okay. Number 2, not everyone should take the journey with you. He says that's an issue of ability. They don't have the ability, so they shouldn't take the journey. Number 3, he said not everyone can. Not everyone can, which means they don't even have the potential to. So you have to begin to navigate this when you're looking at the team and say, people need to have the choice to leave. People need to be assessed on their ability to be on the journey and be on the team, and then people need to be assessed based on their potential. You see, there's a lot of people that have the potential, but they don't have the ability. Or they have the ability and the potential, but they just don't want to be a part of the team. And so you've got to have people who choose to be a part of the team, who have an ability to be a part of the team, and have the potential to be a part of a team. So it's a great way to begin to assess teamwork and how people are buying in. And then he gives these 6 qualities or characteristics of people who are weak links. They are unable or unwilling to keep pace with the rest of the team. Think if you were collectively running a marathon, right? And the team crosses the finish line at the same time. If you've got the team that's running a 9-minute mile and you've got one person who is running an 11-minute mile, and they're unable to keep pace, that's one thing. That goes back to that idea of ability as well as potential. But if they are unwilling to keep pace, right, that's a whole different story. Weak links are usually unable or unwilling to grow. They're unable or unwilling to grow. They're also unable or unwilling to have the team vision. They're really not interested in the team. They're constantly interested in themselves. Number 4, they are unable or unwilling to meet the expectations of the team. They're always making excuses. Well, I can't do that because of this. That we call that they've got a but. Yeah, but. Yeah, but. I would, but. They're unable or unwilling to meet expectations. Number 5, they are unable or unwilling to work on their own development. They just say, well, I'm not going to work on it. They kind of have a give up mentality. And number 6, they are unable or unwilling to be a part of the team. So when we talk about weak links, we're not talking about people who are having a tough week or a tough month or a tough season of life. This isn't about productivity and, hey, you haven't met quota, so automatically you're gone. This is about a continual cycle of a problem of people who are unwilling or unable to buy into this team dynamic, grow themselves, keep pace, share the vision, meet the expectations, and participate as members of a team. When that's the case, what Maxwell says is your team is going to be limited by that weakest link. And so at some point in time, you have to make a decision to let that person go on their own path, their other path. Now, when you think of that from an individual perspective, it can seem harsh or difficult, but when you think of it as a team kind of goal, it changes the perspective, right? A tree has to be pruned in order for it to bear its fullest fruit. If you've got a tree that has a dead branch that's weighting everything down and that branch is not pruned, the tree will be less productive and effective. And so there's an interesting dynamic we have to walk here between interpersonal relationships. We want to empower people. We want to care for people. We want to be there for people. We want to be patient with people as they grow. But we're talking about someone who is unwilling to buy into the team concept, unwilling to move forward. When that happens, we've got to make a decision for the wellness and the health of the team in order to cut that person off and begin to move forward. So that is the law of the chain. And when it comes to teamwork and when it comes to leadership, if you have a goal in mind or a place that you want to go to, these are the difficult decisions that leaders have to make. These are the difficult decisions that need to be made when you're leading yourself. One final thing I'll say is take this all the way down to a personal level. If your body, your mind, all of your gifts are a team that are coming together to be the very best you, but you have one area of your life that is an anchor. Maybe it's an addiction. Maybe it's a bad relationship. Maybe it's bad financial management. Maybe it's bad salesmanship or bad sales skills, right? It could be a number of things. Until you are willing to address that issue and cut that issue off, you can't come together as a team within yourself in order to be successful. So this doesn't just apply to corporate teams and, all this stuff. It applies to you as well. So often, people are unwilling to cut off bad habits, bad mindsets, bad sales skills, bad relationships, addictions, money management situations. So they live in a constant cycle of doing the same thing, right? And expecting different results, which is the definition of insanity, right? So think about this today. Today's episode or today's call is a little bit of a tough love to say, listen, team goal, team unity, team health is essential. So we got to make sure we cut the weakest links, but also individual health, individual unity is key as well. And we have to be willing to cut off or overcome, these difficult areas that are also often holding us back. All right. Well, that wraps it up for today, guys. This is the Law 5 and the laws of teamwork, the law of the chain. The strength of the team is impacted by its weakest link. See you guys next week for law number 6.